Hey guys, today's episode is brought to you by Omigo Bidet. Omigo is the greatest thing to clean your you-know-what with, and we'll tell you more about that during the episode. But there is a fan contest. The best fan-filled commercial for Omigo wins $500 and an Omigo Bidet, and we will air the winning commercial at the end of a Gas podcast. Deadline to enter is October 29th. Email gasdigitalmarketing@gmail.com for more info, and let's start the shoe.
Fill her up.
You're listening to the Gas Digital Network.
Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. One of the best things to come out of the pandemic is me and comic Dave Smith now have an excuse to have ongoing crossover episodes. We'll do them every other week, alternating on his show, Part of the Problem. I call it to myself, Part of the Program. So I just almost said it that way by accident. Also, 1/3 Legion of Skanks, his comedy special Libertas hit #1 and Amazon. My good friend comic Dave Smith. There's you and I were talking about kids right before this started. Like, I have 2 nephews now. I'm really, really excited. My sister also has a very dark sense of humor, so we're having a lot of fun with the kids at their expense. I am excited because I think I get to be the one to tell you, and I want to see the look on your face, that did you know Meghan McCain had her kid with Ben Domenech, her husband, and do you know what she named her daughter?
What?
She named her Liberty. I think that's lovely.
Yeah, it's really, really wonderful.
So I guess Megan's more of a libertarian than you.
Look at that. I guess
That's what
so.
the data says.
Yes. Well, she is. I mean, she believes in liberty, whether you want it or not. She believes in forcefully spreading liberty all throughout the globe. So yeah, she's got us both beat.
Whereas you just believe in liberty for certain people, and other people, yeah, they can't handle it.
Well, I don't know. That's hitting a little close to home.
One of the things that really, what people tell you all the time, and obviously I'm not a dad, it's uncle, so it's a little different, is that when you have a kid, your life changes and so on and so forth. And to me, one of the things I wanted to talk about is I didn't realize how much all this stuff matters so much more when you've got this little idiot walking around who's completely clueless about how bad things are in the world. And it like puts like this fire in your brain that it's your job to make sure this little idiot never realizes how bad things are in the world.
Yeah, no, that's a good, if you, there's something almost, it's weird because it's almost like these opposite impulses that you have simultaneously. So there's something really scary about it because you all of a sudden have a lot more to lose. There's, you don't even realize before you have kids, but you kind of walk around with like, oh, the worst thing that happens is something happens to me. Yeah. And that's really not that scary. I mean, it's scary, but it's really not that bad. And even for most people, I think if you were to think about something really horrible happening to you, the worst aspect of it, like if you were to be killed or something, the worst aspect is like the people you love.
Yeah.
Who like, oh, this would destroy them. But a kid really takes it to a next level, like that. It's like, oh my God, I can't let anything happen to my kid or to me because of my kid and all of that. But at the same time, it's almost weirdly calming, in the sense that like, if you were, let's say you were like, I don't know, there was like a terrible earthquake or something like that, and you were alone. You might kind of freak out and be like, oh my God, what the hell's going on? The ground is shaking. This is insane. But if there was just a 4-year-old there with you, your instinct is almost like, everything's okay. Just relax. Everything's fine.
Because you kind of behavior. Yeah.
Yes, you have to be strong for them. So in a sense, it almost like calms you down as well. It's very strange, but I think there's something very deep seated and genetic about it. The way we,
One
act
of the
with
things,
kids.
yeah, one of the things that's also I'm realizing now, like when you're a kid, when you're very young, you think your parents like literally know everything. And then there's that day when you realize, oh, there's some stuff they don't know I could get away with. Then you're like, oh, these people are kind of assholes and putzes or whatever. And then now I'm at the point where I'm like, they were smarter than I gave them credit for. Because a lot of times when I thought I was being slick, they knew what I was up to and they just let me have my way. Because it's kind of like my grandma, right? This is a bad example of what I'm trying to say, but like her earlobes are stretched because when I was a kid, I would just like to yank at them. And like, she didn't care. She let this gives him pleasure, let him, yank at my earlobes. So like when you're a kid, you're trying to get over on your parents and you think, oh, I'm so smart. They knew. And I'm only realizing now, has that started with your daughter yet? Has she tried it, the chicanery?
She's at phase 2 of that 3-phase dynamic, where she's already, about a week ago, I think, she was like, all right, this guy doesn't know anything. I've already figured this all out. No, it's it's really interesting because she's almost 2 years old. And so now she is in this phase where she's got, some language, she can sprint, and she really, you see this like intense desire for autonomy. That already happens, like at this age, where she wants to wear what she wants to wear, and she wants to go do what she wants to do. And she kind of, was really fascinating, is like they have great bullshit radar. Like they kind of know when there's something that it's like, oh no, you can't do that. And there's no, like there's something that's like, oh, I want to like stand up on the top of the deck. And it's like, yeah, that's not happening. But then there's something else where it's kind of like, oh, I want that. And I know you might give it to me. So it's like, cut the bullshit. You can actually give that to me. And it's quite fascinating.
Yeah, I had this fantasy that basically my nephew would be like a literal puppet made out of meat, and I could make him do whatever I wanted and have like fun, with him in that way. And he just turned 3. It's not the case. Like, I bought him a dunce cap to take a funny series of photos for Instagram. And we're like, put on the hat. And he's like, no, I don't want to put on this hat. He doesn't know what a dunce cap is. How many people know what a dunce cap is anyway, right? But in his mind, he goes, it's a clown hat. And I'm like, that's really smart that you have the perception that, okay, it's this cone-shaped hat that's like a clown, and you don't want to be a clown. My sister made him do it anyway, but it was still like, yeah.
And quite often, just because you're trying to impose it on them, they're like, no, I don't want this to be imposed on me. I want to decide. I want to determine what I'm going to wear. It's very strange, but it's not. Children are incredibly mimetic, but they also desire autonomy. Yeah. So they do everything you do. And it's really, it's not a contradiction. They're doing what you do, but they also see that you have autonomy. So they're like, okay, well, I want to do that too. I want to also be an individual. And you can try your best to suppress that, but it's going to come out one way or the other.
Yeah, and then now I'm
saying there, you shouldn't try to suppress that as well.
Well, I'm just sitting there thinking, am I a bad person that he's 3 years old and okay, yeah, I know. I mean, am I?
No, not for anything related to this.
I know. I was gonna say, I know I'm bad in general. Does this make me like within 1 standard deviation of what I was before? In that I'm forcing this kid, using the word loosely, of course, to do stuff just because I think it's going to be cute and funny, even though he doesn't want to. But I'm not hurting him, and this isn't the kind of thing he's going to get upset about in 15 years. But I always resented being forced to do things I didn't want to. So it's like, I don't know, this is causing me some kind of a moral quandary. I'm not going to stop, but I am going to, he's here to be a source of humor for me. And there's another one who just was born Zach. So if this one gets too old and annoying, there's a backup.
You got it. Well, that's very good. That's smart.
But it's still like, it's making me question things.
Yeah. I mean, I think you learn a lot from being around little kids, particularly being a parent, but just in general from being around little kids, you learn a lot because there's such a more transparent version of what we all are. And you realize that this is like what we all come from. But there's so many things that are so fundamental to our nature that we kind of overlook them as adults. And we also like build up all types of, walls and we wear different camouflage and shit like that kids just don't. Like my daughter, is almost 2. If my daughter laughs, it's always a real laugh. Like it's never just a polite laugh. It's guile. yes, you made her laugh if she's laughing. And there's something that's really kind of amazing and refreshing about that level of honesty. You also see them go through.
Wow, you finally made someone laugh. Congratulations, Dave.
It was a big moment. It was a big moment for me. And I figured out how to trim the fat on the jokes. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, I didn't really need this part. You get right to the real heart of what the funny is here. It was, it's amazing. Like my daughter, just the other day, my mother came over, who my daughter adores, her grandmother, and my wife was out shopping. And so she was reading a book with my mother, and then my mother had to go to the bathroom. So my mother gets up to go to the bathroom, and my daughter, just because she's almost 2, she loses her mind that she has to go to the bathroom. She throws herself on the ground and starts hitting the ground. And then my wife, my daughter's mother, came home right as that was happening, and she heard that mommy was home, and she pops up and runs over to the gate and starts like flipping out that mommy's here. And it's amazing to watch a human being go through this. Like, can you imagine what it would be like? What would have to happen?
Stages of grief in 5 minutes.
Yes, like it was literally less. It was less than a minute. Can you imagine like what it would take to upset you so much that you would throw yourself to the ground and start pounding on the floor? Like something really devastating would have to happen to you to do that. And then to just snap out of it because something so amazing happened that eclipsed that moment. Like, it's amazing to watch a human being go through all of that. And by the way, that's every day, all day long.
So it's easy to talk smack about Lewis because he's such a low quality, horrible person and cautionary tale. And he also plays up the heel very, very well and increasingly. But I cannot overstate how much I admire him for choosing to be A, so present in his son's life, and B, to be a peaceful parent and to be taking this something consciously and seriously. I think that's like for me, the highest level of respect when you're a dude and you're like, I am going to take this role really seriously. I'm going to put a lot of thought into it to make sure this little kid thrives. I can't admire him even more for this, which is so contradicting to the rest of his just really like diarrhea inside a garbage personality and body and face.
It gives him license to be a real piece of shit in other areas because he really is such a good dad. And as you kind of said, I mean, there's really nothing more important than that. I really think that, raising kids peacefully and showering them with love and attention and affection is much more important than any of the other, important issues that we talk about. And there's not to, diminish the importance of like really big things, but if somebody was like an awful father, they could be great in every other aspect in their life. And I just would have no respect for that person. And
or
I
at
also,
the very least, you'd be baffled.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Like maybe you don't have to be horrible. Maybe you could just be mediocre. You could at least be mediocre, right?
Yeah.
This is a human being who looks up to you.
And I got to say, like, I really, and I give the credit to Stefan Molyneux for this, because I really thought he just made an overwhelming libertarian case, excuse me, an overwhelming libertarian case for peaceful parenting. And it is pretty crazy to think that you have these libertarians who argue in abstraction about the non-aggression principle all day long, who hit their kids. And that just seems very bizarre and contradictory to me. And it really kind of shows something that you would be like, oh, so you have this this philosophical moral framework, but you can't enact this in your own life with the most vulnerable, defenseless human. So, I mean, I don't think I ever would have hit my kid regardless of if I hadn't heard him make that argument. But to me, it was always just a really devastating argument that is almost irrefutable.
Well, that's what I want to talk to you about, because one of the things is it's very important to practice what we preach. And like everyone's got the right ideas. If you're not applying them, it's like, oh yeah, I want everyone to be happy and rich and healthy, and I'm going to do absolutely nothing to further this. And I'm just going to be not only just despicable, but like just awful person. It's really amazing how people have that cognitive dissonance. On an evolutionary perspective, maybe we have to have that, because if you start thinking about all the horrible things a lot of people do on a regular basis, Camus, is very big on this, that like, you can't escape your conscience, and you really have to own your shit. And the amount of people who don't is just mortifying. They just don't think in those terms. But here's the question of putting this into practice. Okay. So I'm in the car with my nephew. I have to sit in the middle. He's in the car seat. He starts kicking me. Literally, what am I supposed to do?
Oh, kick back. No,
you break that jaw once.
Well, I mean, look, I guess I need to know a little bit more about the situation, but you know your nephew pretty well, and you probably know what, like techniques can be used. I just look at it like, well, the first thing you're going to take, for moral reasons, you take an issue off the table. So in the same sense that, like, if you were sitting around,
Well, let me hold on. Let
Sure.
me tell you what I did, and then you tell me if I was wrong or not, because I genuinely did not know what to do when I was in that moment, and I want to do the right thing. And you're a dad, so you think about this more than I do. All I did, he was in his car seat. I grabbed him by the back of his neck and kind of held him in place, and he was really, really, and I'm like, stop kicking me, and I let him go, and then he'd start again. And I just held him in place. Is that the wrong thing?
How old is he? 3?
3.
Yeah, I think it's not wrong. I don't know if it's ideal. I mean, so what I was getting at, like, there's certain things, right? Like, whatever it is, like if you were like, oh man, we're really behind on money and we're not making ends meet. And someone was like, well, maybe you could try to work some overtime, or maybe we could cancel a few of these bills. And
Sure.
then, someone was like, or you could sell your kids into child trafficking. It's like, that is technically an option, to bring more money in. Like, that would bring more money in. But for moral reasons, you go, okay, we're taking that off of the table.
Yeah.
That's not one of the options. But so once you take that all off, it's like, okay, well, let's get creative here and think about what other techniques there are. So to me, I think the best technique in those situations is positive reinforcement. So I will do something positive for you if you behave the way I want you to. And you have to play around with that a little bit and get to know the kid, like how exactly it works with them. And my daughter's too young for this stuff, but something like, whatever it is, if you're going to go see the kid's father, something like that, it's like, I'm going to tell your dad how good you were if you behave for me. If you stop kicking me, we can do this. We can do something like that.
Isn't that validating bad behavior?
It's not validating it. It's validating good behavior. It's telling him that if you behave well,
he will know that if he just comes up and smacks me in the face, then I will say, hey, if you stop smacking me in the face, you're going to get a candy bar.
Well, what you also want to do, and 3 might be a little bit too young for this, is that what you also want to do is you want to do whatever technique you can to stop the behavior that's antisocial and destructive. Yeah. And then you ultimately want to try to explain to them why that behavior bothered you, and why it's a problem, and hope that you can get that through to them. But whatever it is, whatever the technique is, it might just be throwing on a cartoon. It might be some type of distraction, some type of reward. I think positive reinforcement is the best if you can find a way to do that, because then it's just incentivizing good behavior without all the negative stuff. It's like, I think it's best to avoid like punishment for bad behavior. I think it just spirals into like a bad place. But ultimately what you want from them is to some degree understand what's expected of them and what's unacceptable behavior. I'm not like completely against punishment in every sense of the word. I just think it's best to avoid if you can. But ultimately, all I'm saying is that physical violence should be taken off the table for moral reasons, and then after that, it's all, I'm open-minded to better techniques. And like I said, I mean, I'm not really one to speak on that because my daughter's still, kind of a baby. It's somewhere in between baby and toddler. Yeah. So I haven't really, gotten to that level yet.
Hey guys, want to take a sec to talk about our sponsor, Omigo, OMIGO. They're an amazing bidet brand, changing the way you do your filthy business. They gave it to us. I don't want to get into too many details, but let me just say I like it. They're incredible, modern bidets delivered right to your front door. You can turn any toilet into one. They're very easy to install. You don't need to call a plumber. This is a DIY job. Think about it. Every day, this is something where your life can be a little bit better. Here's the deal. If you go to myomigo.com/welcome, you get 15% off. That's myomigo.com/welcome. You get 15% off. Check them out. They have something that works for every toilet, which means every single one of you. I know a lot of you are homeward bound and immobile because of your morbid obesity. This will be a great way to stay relatively clean. You are welcome. Speaking of kids, let's talk about Hunter Biden.
He's an adult, sir.
He's still someone's kid.
Yeah, he's a fucking 85-year-old senile man's kid.
This stuff with the Hunter's laptop, as we recorded like a few hours ago on Twitter, even Fox News, the expression in quotes, even Fox News was trending because people were saying even Fox News wouldn't touch this laptop story. Just now, a director of national intelligence, I think was his position, came out and said, we have no evidence, that this has anything to do with Russia, which is impossible because everything has to do with Russia. So by definition, just use your logic, stupid. This has to do with Russia. What this took me back to, there was a movie made, a documentary about Andrew Breitbart called, I think, Breaking Breitbart. What was it? I forget what it was called. I'm sure you know the one that I'm talking
I know the one you're talking about. Me and my wife watched it. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was one point because Breitbart had the Anthony Weiner pictures, and he was writing articles about it. And everyone in the corporate press was making him out to be a jackass and like, this is despicable. How can you accuse him of this? Blah, blah, blah. You have no evidence, whatever. And then Weiner had his press conference and he was asked about it and he didn't deny it. He's like, oh, is that your picture? Well, that guy sure is well hung. It's like, that's an odd question. That's
and he would say these things. He would say like, we believe our Twitter account was hacked and we're looking into it. And they're like, yeah, but is that your picture? And he said, like I said, we believe our Twitter account is hacked. And you're like,
wait, what?
Like really? And then at one point, I think he said, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. Like, you don't know? That's like, that seems strange.
At that point, Breitbart was like, we got him. And I think it was yesterday on Fox News when there was someone from the Biden campaign. They were asked point blank, are these emails real? And they just would refuse to say no. To me, it would be better to lie and say no, and then later be like, oh, I was so deceived by Hunter. If you're hemming and hawing, you know it's real.
Well, I think what's going on here, right? And this is to answer why they wouldn't lie, because that's a very interesting question right there, right? So no one is denying this. The Biden's campaign, Hunter, no one is coming out and saying, these are not my emails. This is not true. This did not happen. The closest was the Biden campaign said, we checked back on his official schedule and there was no meeting with this exec from Burisma. So you're like, all right, but that's a little bit different than denying the meeting happened or denying that the emails are real. Yeah. So what's happened is they have this hard drive. This is clear. It is Hunter Biden's. They have it. This has been corroborated. They've literally talked to different people, several different people who are on email chains that confirmed that, yes, these were emails to Hunter Biden. So what they're doing is they're dripping out bits of information and they want to catch Biden in a big lie. So they don't want to lie. Because
I haven't been following the story as closely as you because it just, I've been behind the curve. Who is they who are dripping this out? The Trump campaign, Giuliani?
Yeah. It's Giuliani and Bannon got their hands on the hard drive.
Wow, it's like Darth Vader.
Yes, the people you wouldn't want to have it at all. So what they're going to do is drip out information, and then they want to catch Biden denying it, and then slam him with, well, here's the proof that it happened, which they have. So the question is going to be, how much more damning information is on these hard drives? And I got to say, I mean, this is complete speculation. I think it's really bad. I think it's really, really bad, and this is going to be something big. I think this is the October surprise, which I've been predicting there'd be one for a while. It just felt like that this year. Yeah. It just felt like a year where there'll be something big that shakes it up. Now, there's wild conspiracies going on that there's child porn and that Hunter's involved in the child porn. Look, I don't know that that's true at all, but there are several things that make me hesitant to dismiss it. There's a few things that are really interesting to watch about this. Number one, the FBI agent who is looking into this, it has been working on child porn. Like that's what he does. And they got this guy investigating this story, which seems odd if it had nothing to do with that.
I think what you're referring to is there was an interview with Maria Bartiromo with Ron Johnson, who's a senator. And Maria, I'm gonna be as pro Hunter in this as I can. I want to give him every benefit of the doubt because this is such a serious accusation. Maria, let's assume for the sake of argument, was being a total partisan Trump hack. And she was saying, gee, why would the FBI agent who worked on CP sign off on this thing? And the very obvious answer would be like, well, just because like I'm a FBI agent who works on counterfeiting doesn't mean that the person who I'm currently investigating in this instance is a counterfeiter at all, or has anything with counterfeiting. It's just, it could have crossed across my desk. It's just my obvious answer. Ron Johnson, who is not at all like a Ted Cruz, he's not at all like a Matt Gaetz. He's like a pretty straight, narrow Republican. He wasn't like, oh, Maria, you know what you're talking about. Let's not reach to conclusions. He was pushing in that direction as well.
And he said, that's the question. He was like, yeah, that's the question. Why is this guy on it? And he goes, I want to know as much as you do. I think things are going to come out in the near future. It would have been very easy for Ron Johnson and not out of character at all for him to go, yeah, no, like no one's suggesting that.
Yeah, let's not speculate. That's because
there's already a huge political scandal with what's been reported. And it may not be that out of the norm. There's scandals all over the place in the swamp, but it's a pretty big scandal that Joe Biden has said he had no idea what his kid was doing when he was getting paid, obviously, for being Joe Biden's kid. But now it's very clear that that's not the case, that he knew exactly what was going on. And in fact, it looks like meetings were being set up with him, and perhaps that he was even getting money himself from these deals, which is a huge political scandal and illegal if that's true. So there's that, but listen, this is far from like conclusive proof that there is child pornography with Hunter or anything like that. But it's very strange, very, very strange to me that Savannah Guthrie, I believe is her name.
The interviewer,
in the day after the Post ran this story, she asked Donald Trump in a presidential town hall meeting to condemn pedophile conspiracy theories. It's a very strange thing to ask a president in a presidential town hall. It is not something that usually comes up. There was no reason for that question to be asked. There was nothing new in the news other than this that could even be related to that. Usually pedophilia doesn't make its way into a presidential town hall meeting as a topic.
They pretend it's not happening.
Right.
And in their defense, it's something that is so uncomfortable for many people to even think about that they're trying to be corporate and not ruffle feathers. And I can understand why they don't want to bring it up.
Sure. But they did bring it up, and they weren't asking Trump to condemn pedophilia. They were asking Trump to condemn conspiracy theorists who are against pedophilia, which Trump refused to do. And that something about that just seemed very strange. And I don't know. I mean, we'll see what's happening with this whole thing. But there's no question that, like, look, of course, and Twitter was going nuts with this stuff, but anyone who wants to make fun of the QAnon people, I mean, whatever. I don't really know that much about them, and make fun of them. I like making fun of everyone, but like in a post Jeffrey Epstein world, you just really can't make fun of like the Pizzagate types or the QAnon people or anything like that. Sorry, we already found out that a really powerful rich guy connected to all these politicians was not only running a pedophilia ring, but that he was let off by intelligence when they caught him red-handed, and that the news story was squashed by ABC News. So
thanks to the Queen of England.
Yes. Like,
right.
I mean, that's really something. So you just can't exactly get away with just dismissing this stuff anymore. And Hunter Biden is pretty clearly, I mean, this is like a drug addict who's involved in very shady dealings. He's a swamp creature. And I don't know. I'm not saying I believe the conspiracy. I don't have enough evidence to say that I think this happened, but I don't dismiss these things.
Well, the question is this. I mean, are then Giuliani and like if you have the hard drive and it's got CP on it, aren't you? You know, I don't know where that works
Oh
legally,
yeah, I think technically everyone's committing felonies.
right?
If they're distributing it, if they're watching it, I think it's all criminal activity. So it's a very strange situation.
Yeah, and the thing is, if there's one person who I, as the Biden campaign, wouldn't want have their eye of Sauron on me, it's Steve Bannon. I mean,
Yeah.
he's pure evil in the best sense of the word.
And he's vicious and he's really smart.
Yeah.
That's not the guy you want. That's not the guy you want coming at you.
Oh my God. Yeah. So and the thing is, there's so much about Hunter. Like he admitted. I mean, this is the thing where I wish, as anarchists, we would get more press. Is that he admitted to whatever the New Yorker or New York Magazine that he was like he was buying crack and using crack. It's like these are felonies you're putting in the paper knowing you're going to have no consequences. Whereas this is the same kind of thing where no one, other than maybe Ron Paul, I don't even know about Rand Paul, is saying that this shouldn't be criminal. I mean, these are like, everyone will be like, hey, weed, but crack, come on, let's be serious. And it's just also amazing the argument that like, if both, there's several people who the illegality of weed is keeping them from trying or using weed. I don't think there's anyone who's like, you know what, I would try crack if only it were legal.
Yeah, of course not. Of course not. And like a lot of people, the corporate press tactic has kind of been like, oh look, man, it's like his son's got a drug problem. Like, don't bring that up. That's like, a lot of people struggle with this. And you could kind of understand that if Joe Biden hadn't authored the 94 crime bill. Like, no, I'm sorry. And of course, none of them are talking about it like you are for the right reasons with the right angle. But it's like, no, I'm sorry. You would literally throw someone in jail for a decade over this. Like you would ruin their lives. But I'm supposed to not say anything about it because it's your kid. It's someone in the nobility class or something. Like, no, fuck that. This is it's horrific. How many people's lives have been ruined when they're already not in great shape if they're doing crack to begin with?
It's also funny, like they're like the newfound aristocracy and talk about inbreeding. Like he hooked up with or married his brother's widow.
Yeah, that's also very, very weird, very bizarre.
So weird.
Well, it's something that I think we've all who are like in this kind of red pill space have thought about for a long time. But once, like, if you just get red pilled on the nature of the state, particularly on the nature of war, it's very hard to not go down like two more steps and be like, wait, but who are these people?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Who the hell are these people who are like, like the average person on the street, if you just ask them about Barack Obama, they don't hate Barack Obama for the reasons I do. Like they don't, whether they like him or not, they're not like, he like launched a war of genocide with the Saudis in Yemen. Like this guy is literally, it's committed crimes against humanity. Children have been slaughtered because of this guy's decisions. Even like the Fox News watching ones don't even know about that. They'd be like, well, I don't know, Benghazi, or he's a secret Muslim or something like that,
Right, yeah.
Like but the people in power, they absolutely know about that and they're fine with it. They're fine with the fact that babies are slaughtered. And you could be like, well, that's over there. It's not over here. But it's like, what type of person is comfortable at this, at the upper echelons of power like that? And it turns out, I think, not very good people. And I remember talking to you about this back in 2016. But part of the thing that was so damning for Hillary Clinton when Weiner got caught sending nudes to that teenager is that it's just like, so your husband's a sexual predator and your best friend's husband is also a sexual predator. Like, who the fuck are these people?
Right.
Like, whose story is that? They'd be like, well, it doesn't reflect on her. She's just, she's just a nice, decent woman who really wants to help people, who happens to be friends with Jeffrey Epstein, who's a pedophile, and her husband is also a rapist, and her best friend's husband is also a sexual predator. It's like, what? That's very, very bizarre. And then you put that together with her, like, the couple days after Gaddafi is like sodomized to death in the streets, and she's laughing about it. And you're like, yeah, I think these people might be different from you and I.
This is you at your best, I gotta tell you. Because when you're just saying all this stuff so matter-of-factly, in that, like, it's almost like a blue-pilled voice, you could just imagine the people listening to this, like the blue-pilled boomer cons being like, wait a minute, yeah, wait, what? Like, she's even worse than I thought. It's not like, oh, she's corrupt. It's like, this is a Martian.
Well, I'm happy for like a solid counter argument if someone has one, but like I'm just putting out this information here. Like what is one to do with that information other than determine that quite possibly these are like sociopathic monsters who are, like they're the ones that were the most driven to get in these powerful positions, and they're the ones who are like the most acceptable for these positions. And I think a big part of it is that people, very, very powerful interests rely on, this power structure. I mean, it moves a tremendous amount of wealth. Like it's hard to even quantify. It's not just like whatever the $5 or $6 trillion the federal government's going to spend this year, but then think about like the money printing and the big banks that are all basically quasi-state apparatus machines. And it's just trillions and trillions of dollars. And if you want someone to do your bidding in that situation, who better than someone you have a lot of dirt on?
Yeah.
So you find these like really fucked up people, and then they're much easier to control. And if Biden's kid is doing this shit, and like say the Chinese government has all this dirt on him, well, then it's not such a surprise why China's behind Joe Biden.
Here's the other thing you were just saying about give me like a stupid explanation. I've mentioned this before, and I'm stuck on it. We have and correct me if I'm wrong, I hope I'm wrong, I have not seen any photographs of Ghislaine Maxwell being perp walked, arrested, arraigned, in jail, any of them. Like, give me a stupid reason how that's possible.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's not like the press isn't interested.
Yeah, and it's not like the people wouldn't be interested for the press to make a big story out of it. It's really remarkable how much they've made this kind of disappear. I mean, it's just not really brought up that much. And so, who knows what's really going on there? All I can tell you is that I don't think and I'm not, there's people who have done much deeper dives into the Jeffrey Epstein thing than me, but I don't understand how you could look into that for like 5 minutes and not come away from it going like, yeah, dude, this whole thing is this stinks. Like there's something incredibly fishy about all of this. Like something went down here. And it is pretty strange that we haven't seen more photographs, more stories on what exactly is going on with this woman, and that there hasn't been more pressure. I mean, you'd think if there was a press corps, if there was ever a purpose for them, that right away there'd be pressure for like, well, we want to know. I mean, clearly all these powerful people were involved with a child sex trafficking ring. So we want to know who else, and what was their extent of involvement. I mean, we know like that Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton and these people are hanging around with him. Well, what's the extent of it here? And it's amazing and truly a red pilling moment to be like, that's not that big of a deal to the corporate press. It's not. Trump's taxes are a bigger story to them than Bill Clinton being in a photograph with an underage girl who was the victim of child sex trafficking. Like a former sitting president of the United States of America is very closely implicated in a pedophile ring. Who
risked his presidency to get a Hummer from a chubby kid.
Yeah.
Don't tell me how she was 21. Give me a break. When you're the president, you're like 55 or 60. It's not.
That's very, very weird, man. Very fucking like incredibly creepy at that age. Like I think it's creepy for someone our age to be hooking up with a 20-year-old. I mean, like, but at that age and in that position, it's very creepy. And married, right? It's
with a kid at that age or close to it, yes.
Yeah, or a little younger, but close enough that it's
She's
weird.
Closer to her than to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's incredibly disturbing. And then the fact that this wouldn't be a big scandal. I mean, even if you do think it's a scandal, like duck out on your taxes, how is that a bigger one? And then you realize it's very naked. It's about power. It's just that they want Trump out, and so that this story helps them in that goal. And the Bill Clinton story does nothing for them. In fact, it might do the opposite. So forget that.
I like talking to or reading from like the hardcore lefties, because the level of hatred they have towards like people like the Clintons like cannot be overstated. And the boomer cons don't appreciate this, but it's really through the roof. And someone I have a soft spot in my heart for is Andrea Dworkin, who was probably, as Kathy Young wrote about her in her obituary in Reason, literally insane. Because she was like 350 pounds, and she said like towards the end of her life she was drugged and raped, and it's like, no, you weren't. And she was the big one who was trying to push like banning pornography using like some loophole in civil rights law, and she was trying to make the claim that like all pornography is like women being put into meat grinders or like having like hoses inserted into various orifices. And I'm like, I don't know where you're searching for that, but that's not really my understanding of, most pornography at all. But she made the point, and, this was during the 90s when the Clinton stuff was happening. She talked about in her book, and there's a footage of her at Harvard discussing the book as well, where she's like, we know he did it. We knew even if it was legal, not legal, this is the president of the United States. We talk about power differentials in terms of sexual harassment. And there's never been a bigger power differential than president and an intern. We know that his wife, the senator, stood by him and had no consequences for this. And she talked about the 96 convention, Democratic conventions. It's this really poignant moment because like you could see how much it matters to her. How she's like, they wouldn't let us inside the convention. We took to the streets. That was fine. We didn't need to be inside. And she goes, and all the Democratic congresswomen came out and used our microphones, even though they had every opportunity they could want. And she goes, and I'll never forget her quote. She goes, none of these women helped us at all. Not one bit. Like they were of no use to us. All they cared about was power. And all this, feminism stuff was completely irrelevant to them. So to hear just people like that talk, this has been the case for a long time. And by the way, as you and I obviously agree, this is hardly exclusive to the Democrats in any sense. I mean, the Republicans have plenty of cases where they will just stick by their own. How many letters were there from Dennis Hastert to defend him not going to jail? For pedophilia or paying money covered up, whatever the hell it was. So it's just. It's one of the bitterest red pills to swallow. And something I'm covering a lot in my next book is just how bad these bad people are. And I got to tell you, the worst thing you could say about Joe Biden is he was like a crook and he took money and his son got these deals, business deals. I'm like, you know what? Compared to everything else, that's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, as far as scandals go, it's pretty like par for the course.
Exactly.
I mean, like for a senator or a vice president to have a kid who's raking in money off
That's
of their
what lobbying
name
is. That's literally lobbying. The whole premise of lobbying.
There was something, I forget exactly what the reason was, but there was something that Chuck Schumer was jumping on Amy Coney Barrett, saying she has a conflict of interest in the Obamacare. So she should recuse herself if there's a ruling on Obamacare, which, assuming she's confirmed. And I can't remember what the argument was for why she should recuse herself, but like, they'll come out and be like, oh, you have a conflict of interest. Chuck Schumer, literally, he gets money. He's one of the largest recipients of Wall Street money, and he votes to bail out the big banks.
Yeah.
I mean, like the conflicts of interest are everywhere. It's the whole machine is run off conflicts of interest. So it's not even so much that that's, like some groundbreaking scandal. It's a scandal and it's an example of that. But no, to me, that's why the stuff that's much creepier is the human lives that'll be destroyed for a deal. So like Obama said that he launched the war in Yemen to, quote, placate the Saudis. It was basically like, it was a deal. It was like, okay, well, the Saudis are pretty pissed off that we did the war in Iraq, and they're pretty pissed off that we signed this deal with Iran. So just to show them that we're still, just to show them that we're still doing business and we still want to have all these contracts and shit, let me make sure that they don't bail on us, and we'll do this war in Yemen for them. And it's like, what? You're talking about literally slaughtering children. It was giving the poorest country in the Middle East, an outbreak of cholera to a placate the Saudis. I mean, it's like, it's that to me is such a bigger scandal. And that's not like controversial. I mean, like the details of it aren't controversial. This is known. So it's, that to me is far worse.
Hey guys, Michael Malice here. Want to tell you about sheath underwear, something that I think about every day because it's the underwear I wear. If you go to sheathunderwear.com and use promo code Malice20, you get 20% off. Here's what's unique about sheath underwear. Yes, it's amazing boxer briefs that are soft and super comfortable, but they also have, and they're made out of this moisture wicking technology, so it keeps you nice, dry, and comfortable. But they have these dual pouches because, you know, as a dude, you got two parts of your anatomy. This holds them and keeps them separated. The first time I tried this, I'm like, what is this? And now I wear it every day because it's so fun and so comfortable. And it's a little bit subversive having your underwear holding you while you're doing a job interview or something else like that. The whole time I'm talking to Dave Smith, sheath underwear has me by the balls, quite literally. If you go to sheathunderwear.com and use promo code Malice20, you get 20% off your order. And now we're going to get back to the show while Dave has no idea that this is what's going on. Something that has just clicked for me in the last week in terms of like just absolute apoplectic rage. Whenever I travel, I'm not a big touristy kind of person. I don't like hitting tourist spots, but it's good to have little goals, you know, to when you hit a new city, just to have something to center your day around. So for me, I always go to like the weird ice cream places because it's fun to try what people are creating with ice cream and everyone likes ice cream. And I've been to many of them all around, you know, the country. The best one is actually here in New York, Ice and Vice. After 7 years, they're closing down because of Corona. Century 21, which was the clothing store when I was a kid, I would get bored out of my mind because my immigrant mom was so exciting getting all the clothing deals. It's my entire life. They're going out of business. In 2008, Wall Street got bailed out by Main Street. All the banks, except for one, everyone paid for it. They got bailed out. They had no consequences for their actions. Now, I don't know how many, those are just two off the top of my head, businesses who, through no fault of their own, clearly, how are they expected to survive, 8 months without revenue or close to it? They're going into business. Too bad. Go shop at Amazon.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, such a quintessential example of like the two parties working together and corporatism at its absolute, most unconscionable worst.
Oh yeah, I think that's like one of the major stories of 2020 that doesn't get nearly enough attention. But it's also all taken place while America's had like the worst year. Like real human beings' lives have been destroyed, and there have been a lot of bailouts given out, but just to the ones who are politically connected, and that's to me that's also it's like this is the thing that's so infuriating about the neoliberal democratic establishment worldview. Basically what Joe Biden's running on is let's get back to normal. Trump is the problem, and we could save the soul of America by just getting him out of there, and then everything's good again because everything was good right before Trump got in there. And it's like Trump is there because of the post bailout America. I mean, it's a few other things. It's the post-war America. It's the war on terror America. But really, I mean, we embarked after a financial recession in 2008 on this Obama recovery that was built off 0% interest rates and record high government spending. And you mix the bailouts in there, but all of that is really a big bailout. Yeah. It's all, and then Bernie Sanders, and this is why it's nice to listen to the left sometimes, even though they're dumb on economics, but like Bernie Sanders would say all the time, and he's right, that he'd say 90% of the new wealth has gone to the top 1%. Yeah. and it's right, and that's why Trump's there. And this is so you could say like, oh, okay, so who got rich in the recovery? Well, it's like basically, I mean, if you own stocks, if you own property, you bailed out. All of that wealth came back. If you were politically connected, living in like Virginia or something like that, or outside Washington, D.C. in some suburb, you did great. And if you're a Wall Street speculator, you did great. But to everybody else, it was just brutal. And they lost everything, or at least, 40% of their wealth or something like that. And so this is why you get Donald Trump. And now we have this year where there's been this huge round of bailouts, make 2008 look like nothing, Interest rates are 0% again, and government spending is way higher than it was under Obama. And they're like, oh, if we just get rid of Trump, everything will be okay. And it's like, dude, get ready for Trump part 2. Because even if Biden and Harris get in there, you do not want to see who the next Republican nominee is going to be. It's gonna be another populist, far harsher, more right wing than Trump is, who's not even that right wing.
It's there's this boomer con delusion that Nikki Haley is going to be the nominee in 2024. And I'm just like, these are the people who thought that like Michelle Obama was going to be the running mate. I'm like, what? Why would she be the running mate when she could be the nominee? Like,
right. I mean, just think about it. And of course, 2016, you can never harp on it enough because it was such a fascinating year. But to think about how off the boomer cons are, the year that Donald Trump won, they started by thinking it was Jeb Bush's year. That's how off they were. That's not like 1 or 2 degrees off. Like that was like, they were like, this is who will capture the base this year is Jeb Bush. And actually it was Trump. That's how off they are with Nikki Haley, thinking Nikki Haley would be.
But like, look, even Trump wasn't there. First, you have to get Ted Cruz and Rubio and even Kasich. They all did better than Jeb.
Yeah.
So it's just even they were like 5 degrees off.
Yes. And just in terms of like where the people were at, it's even more than just the number of candidates you'd have to get through. People didn't really like Ted Cruz. What they liked about Ted Cruz was that everyone up there hated Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
Like
he was aggressive.
It was, we are so furious at you that we want the biggest middle finger we can throw at you. And Donald Trump was just clear and above that option.
Yeah, there was that great moment, which I think is a turning point in terms of these debates, when they asked Ted some question. I think it was about like internet gambling. And he's like, what kind of stupid questions are these? Like, is Donald Trump a supervillain? Jeb, can you name? It's like, what? This is not the issues Americans care about. I'm like, and that was a huge step forward. Yeah.
And it's one of the biggest stories of the Trump rise to power that they all completely miss, is that as it turns out, the stories the things that America wanted to talk about were not at all the things that the corporate press wanted to talk about.
Thunberg. It's not Greta, right?
Yeah, and it kind of makes sense in a way. I mean, I don't know. Donald Trump is like a freaking. I mean, he's hilarious and he's got this brilliant instinct for marketing and trolling, but he's a complete bloviating ignoramus. He doesn't know anything about any issue. He doesn't understand a single policy. But he was like, hey, let's talk about this. Okay, our country is radically changing demographically. We're going to be a majority Hispanic country. Who wanted that? Whoever decided, like, why is this not talked about? And in fact, I vote no. I say no. I don't want to be Mexico. I want to be the United States of America. Have you noticed that our entire industrial base has been shipped overseas? Okay, I'm against that. And also, these wars are stupid. We shouldn't fight these wars. And truthfully, as much as you can make fun of what a buffoon Donald Trump is, those are 3 really serious issues. And you could feel however you feel about them. I don't completely agree with Trump on all 3 of them, but they're really important issues. And then the corporate press was like talking about, all the stuff you were saying that Ted Cruz listed off. And, like transgender bathrooms were a big scandal, according to the corporate press. And you're like, well, who's to say that this is even in the top 500 issues that we should be talking about?
So by the next time we talk on this show, the election will have passed. I'm not comfortable making any predictions because I think something, like you said, something really big. Because remember, 5 minutes ago, we were all talking about how Joe Biden was going to be the one refusing to do debates. Mm-hmm. And then Trump canceled the second one. So I feel very uncomfortable making any kind of predictions at all.
It's very hard. Trump having COVID doesn't even seem like that big of a deal right now.
Right. He almost died.
Yeah, that seems over.
Well, wait, also, we didn't talk about last week. The president said he was going to kiss all the men in the audience, and that wasn't even 24 hours.
Yeah. It's like this is one of those elections where it's like whoever scores the last point is going to end up being president. The only prediction I feel comfortable making is that I don't think we're going to know who the president is on election night. I think this is going to drag out for weeks and lawyers are going to get involved. That's my prediction, but I could be wrong.
This was my prediction, and I made it before and I'm going to make it again. Between Trump, Biden, and Stephen Breyer, I predict one of them will not be with us come election day.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Say that again. Who are the 3
Trump,
people?
Biden, Justice Breyer.
Okay. One of them's gone?
One of them is gone by election day. That's my prediction.
Okay. Like gone from the earth.
Gone from the earth.
Dead.
Dead.
Okay. All right. There you go.
Or no. Extremely incapacitated. Let's say that. Invalid.
Okay. That's an interesting prediction.
I don't think it's that crazy because I'm thinking to myself, okay, how are the people who are writing this simulation going to escalate the chaos? And that really would answer that question. Although, to be fair, child pornography on Hunter's laptop really does answer that question as well.
And child pornography with Hunter in it would really be that's an escalation.
I want to believe that that's impossible.
Yeah. No, it's sure, of course. It's a better world if that's impossible.
I almost tweeted out that the reason Joe Biden is sniffing all those kids is that maybe he's a bloodhound and trying to figure out if they're the ones that Hunter raped.
Jesus, that's rough.
So I have to wait for it until there's CP, but that tweet is ready.
Oh God. Well, I don't know if I'm hoping you do or don't get to use that one.
No, you're hoping I don't, in all seriousness.
That's right. I'm hoping you don't.
I gotta tell you, this is kind of making me start to like Hunter. Because he just seems like so much more normal of just a corrupt jackass than most people.
Assuming there's no pedo shit.
Right, that's what I mean. The rest
assuming
of it.
There's no pedo shit, there is almost something that really humanized it. Like when you see these pictures of him, and it's just like a cigarette and a leather jacket with no shirt on. He's like, I don't know, I'm fucking Joe Biden's kid, man. I want to go to Ukraine.
For a second, I thought it was Nick Gillespie in that photo.
Oh, he's having much more fun than our boy Nick.
So you don't want to make any predictions at all?
I really think I think it's way too crazy, way too close of an election to even know. If I had like gun to the head, if I had to bet, I'd still bet Trump gets reelected. But it's such a thin margin, and the voter by mail stuff really throws everything off. So I have no idea. I think lawyers are going to get involved, and then of course, like you said, it's going to be huge to see two big questions, right? What else do they have on these hard drives? How damning is it? And then the other one is is the corporate press or the DNC sitting on any Trump stuff that they feel like releasing now, which is certainly not beyond possible.
I think it is in a sense because they've been so champing at the bit to get him out that during impeachment they would have dropped it.
It's possible. That is possible.
Yeah.
Who knows? Or then the question is, can they manufacture something?
Yeah.
I mean, all it would take really would be like, one thing. But they could go the pedophilia route too. You could have this Gladwell woman point the finger at Trump. Maybe she comes back out and all of a sudden she outs Trump. It was at parties with Jeffrey Epstein.
You mean Maxwell?
Maxwell, I'm sorry. That's what I meant to say. Yeah. She points the finger at Trump and goes, you know what? He was ordering young girls from us. But it doesn't even have to be true. All they need to do is just put it out.
Dave, we're running out of time. What has been your favorite part of this interview?
I would have to say, I think it was your 3-year-old nephew refusing to allow you to dress him as your prop for your own self-amusement.
He is welcome.